Jesus and Hinduism, study of the heart. Go ahead.
Yes. Can you please explain how Jesus and Hinduism is connected?
Okay, so Jesus and Hinduism are connected in the universal sense. Jesus, despite the antics of many Christians, is connected to universal love in the fact that he professed his connection to God and his ultimate state in connection to God in relation to in the entirety of man, and not just a certain section of man, not just to Jews, not to Christians. He professed his connection to God and our ability to be connected to God in the way that we should all work towards. It had nothing to do with him as necessarily as that person, but his ultimate potential existed and does exist within all of us. And his work wasn't about just his own glorification. It was about the glorification of the path to God. So this is very similar to the Hindu, universalist sense of the path towards perfecting oneself and becoming more attuned to the source being God, the source being that which is beyond the material being very much solid, concrete, temporal, very much connected to time, which is Maya, illusion, delusion. And all of these things combine to allow us to understand that what we have as far as our physical body, as far as what we value materially, has nothing to do with the nature of our soul. Our soul is the ultimate nature of reality. It's the thing that we're working ourselves back to, and God is the ultimate source and basically the component of eternity, a component of infinity. That is the soul. He is the ultimate soul that we are all trying to sear away this materialism from and get back to that pure state from which we came. Jesus and all the other avatars, including Krishna, Narayana, the historical Buddha, and to a certain extent different prophets, try to allow us to connect to that one source from which everything came, and try to lead us back to a life that isn't bound within the kingdom of God, but valuing what God is, infinity, working towards infinity, and not for the material values that society holds most dear. That is what Jesus professed. That is what Hinduism, the ultimate version of Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma, professes and accepts other religions through, so that we may all work towards that one source once more. So what is your next question?
How is compassion the highest level of logic?
So compassion is the most logical when we realize that every soul is one. That every soul has an undeniable connection to every other soul, because the idea of separate pieces of infinity being isolated forever doesn't make any sense. And that's what the soul is. Separate pieces of infinity, temporarily isolated, but they all come from the same source. So the idea that, okay, we understand this material creation through logic, through reasoning, through intellect, through understanding, but to balance that out so that we may all join back with where all of this came from, that all the material that we're trying to understand came from. We have to balance the head with the heart, basically. And the lotus of the heart is the dimension, the emotional dimension through which we reach God. It allows us to reach the vast love of God through our limited love of our temporal delusion that is yet unenlightened. And when we get closer and closer to realizing the connection of all things and the nature of material existence and the different dimensions and the different combinations of the gunas, whether it be sattva, rajas, tamo, purity, restlessness, and darkness, and we start to realize these different combinations in nature, we start to be able to unravel them and truly expand in our understanding and examine ourselves. And when we examine ourselves, it is compassion that allows us to make the final connection. Compassion is the first connection and is the final connection when it comes to a relationship to everyone else and everything else. so that we can all come together. We can combine our spheres. Our auras will become one. Our souls will start to relate to one another, to higher and higher magnitudes as we become more spiritual. And this becomes true as we see a higher and higher cycle being reached on Earth itself. Because we're in Dwapara Yoga right now. We'll be in Tetra, then Satya Yoga, and the different levels of consciousness that the planet reaches overall as a whole will allow us to truly connect over time. And it does seem like we're going towards a precipice to where we won't survive. That we're going towards this time that was worse than what it was. But there will be challenges. There will be terrible things that will happen, and many people will die. But when all is said and done, every single time a cataclysm happens, we will become closer and closer in understanding our true nature and what we must do and what we must not do. So go ahead and ask the last question.
All right, the last question is, how does God search the depths of our hearts?
Since everything is a part of God, since every heart is every emotional and loving part of a heart is connected to God, there really is no difference between God's consciousness, omniscience, God's sight, and the depths of our hearts. Really, the eye of God is everywhere at all times. So it's impossible to be somewhere where God does not see. And since we can't even be within ourselves where God does not see, it is apparent that God will always see our deepest motivations, our deepest conclusions, as far as the conclusions we come to based on greed, or the conclusions that we come to based on an attempt to further ourselves and other people. If we say, okay, we're going to help this person, and they don't accept our help, we don't get angry about it. We should instead walk away and allow the situation to resolve itself. But if we truly realize that to act from a place of compassion that is deep within the heart and connected to God, then there's always a sense of, I can either help or I can't. And then once you realize you can't help, there's no reason in engaging with anyone else, with somebody that you're trying to help when they become combative, when it comes to insults, when it comes to self-judgment. So God explores our hearts and delves into the deepest reaches of our hearts. Every single moment we make an action. Every action is basically an action performed before God, because He's omniscient, He's always present. Every single atom is observed from the point of view of God in our bodies. So most definitely He knows every thought, He knows the source of every action, every motivation, and we should just accept that unless we have the proper motivations, we will have much work to do before the eyes of God. But hey, thank you very much for watching. I hope this video has been interesting. If it has been, if you learned anything at all, feel free to hit that thumbs up down there in the comment section below, and feel free to leave any comments. I'm more than willing to answer any questions, put politely. And if you agree with me, disagree with me, whatever, you can put it down in the comment section below. And I hope to see all of you in the future. May all of y'all have a blessed day.